Hey guys, so before the video starts, from this timestamp to this timestamp, there are going to be some flashing lights. So just a real quick seizure warning, so skip it if you're prone to seizures. Without further ado, please enjoy the video.
No! Layers! Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers? You get it. We both have layers.
There will never be another movie franchise quite like Shrek. The first Shrek film starts with Shrek reading a book, narrating a lovely, generic, Disney-like fairy tale story. Shrek then rips a page out of the book, proceeds to flush it down the toilet, and then bursts from his outhouse as All-Star by Smash Mouth plays in the background. That first movie changed how people would look at computer-animated films. Until then, most computer-animated films were either by Pixar or DreamWorks. Both companies played it safe, cranking out movie after movie, with each one being generic, safe, boring. However, in 2001, along came Shrek. Although Shrek has left his place in cinematic history, his mark is fading away. Almost all animation companies go back to the same formula of generic computer-animated fun for the whole family. Although that is often the case, there is another extreme on the opposite side of the spectrum. Computer-animated movies are either gross X-rated material or stupid fart joke kids films. Computer-animated films have tried and failed at the Shrek approach. Even the Shrek franchise has failed at its own method, with the third and fourth films being okay at best and hot garbage at worst. However, there was a movie after the original Shrek and before Shrek 3 and 4. This was a movie that, at the time, was the highest grossing animated film of all time. Shrek 2 was a phenomenon upon release, and for good reason. However, living toys, talking cars, and many other films would soon create a looming shadow over Shrek. Shrek 2 will not be remembered as an important film. Shrek 2 may not even be remembered. There's a problem when a movie about talking cars, only created for toy sales, will be remembered and revered in a better manner than a film that tries its best. Shrek 2 is the most underrated film to ever exist, and will become forgotten, as most family animated films already have.
Well, I suppose that will be a fine place to raise the children.
It's a bit early to be thinking about that, isn't it?
Indeed. I just started eating.
Shrek 2 was made in a time where computer-animated films were still in uncharted territory. No other computer-animated film had done what the first Shrek film had. The first Shrek film had some unnecessarily gross jokes aimed at children, and while admittedly, the second film does this as well, the second film does something strange. No other film in the quadrilogy of Shrek films, and dare I say, no other computer-animated film has culminated such deep emotions and comedy in such a way. Shrek's wife, Fiona, wants her husband, Shrek, to visit her parents in Far, Far Away. Everyone in Far, Far Away is perfect. Everyone has perfect, normal lives. Along comes Shrek, a hulking ogre who literally compared himself to an onion. The film gives the audience lots of laughs, with most coming from how others perceive Shrek. Then, the strangest thing unfolds. The film tackles a subject that is still relevant and a topic that few forms of media take seriously: the interpersonal emotions of a person. Within this film, a film that many perceive to be a children's film, Shrek becomes depressed. In the first movie, there are moments where Shrek becomes sad about the way he's perceived by others around him. However, in Shrek 2, he practically has an identity crisis. Shrek is conflicted, torn between who he is and who he thinks Fiona wants him to be. Then he proceeds to take a spell that turns him human. Shrek then realizes that Fiona fell in love with him for who he was originally, not the dashing prince that he made himself out to be. A topic this deep is one that would fly over most children's heads. Such a complex subject is surely not made with the sole purpose of entertaining children. There's much more to Shrek 2 than people give it credit for. Just as Shrek was ugly and an outcast within the fictional universe of the films, the real-world computer animation industry has been treated poorly. People are no longer taking animation seriously. Big companies know that they can get away with excluding a lot of quality from children's animated movies. It's not like the adults are watching animated movies much anyways. However, they should be.
Listen, Auntie, If you think this whole mad scene ain't dope, I feel you, dude. I mean, I'm not trying to get up in your grill or raise your roof or whatever, but what I am screaming is, yo, check out this kazing-thazing, baby. I mean, if it doesn't groove or what I'm saying ain't straight tripping, just say, oh, no, you didn't. You know, you're getting on my last nerve. And then I'll know it's... I'll know it's whack. Ow!
Somebody help! I've been kidnapped by a monster trying to relate to me!
It is obvious from the tedious and awkward wording from Shrek that things people hear, experience, and see can leave a big impact on them. Shrek was impacted by the youthfulness of Arthur and was trying to relate to him. Children do the same thing. Kids, in particular, draw heavy inspiration from animated movies and shows. According to semantics scholar, whatever children learn while watching cartoons, they tend to act out, thereby influencing their mode of socializing with other children and with the world in general. Children can learn a lot from cartoons. Children, for decades, have loved two things: cartoons and the weekend. It should be no surprise that animation on television really started to become popular with Saturday morning cartoons. Many modern adults grew up watching the Saturday morning block of animation every weekend. However, every generation seems to grow out of animation as each generation transitions from childhood to adulthood. The Platform magazine, an organization dedicated to discussing a multitude of topics, gave some insight on why adults have become disconnected towards animated productions. Animated movies have valuable lessons that are often missed because the target audience is too young to comprehend. On the other hand, they are often overlooked by an older audience because they are advertised in the wrong light, thus not taken seriously. This statement lines up perfectly with Shrek 2. A few examples of advertisements for Shrek 2 include Shrek digging earwax from his ear, Shrek's face on a cereal box, and Shrek dancing to Burn Baby Burn in a Walmart. Nobody will take a film seriously with advertisements as childlike as those. Shrek 2 is such an underappreciated masterpiece, with the stellar voice acting, an epic soundtrack, and characters that one can both sympathize with and find comedy in. And yet, the advertising infers that the film is just another gross-out kids movie. Advertising is most definitely one reason that older audiences never take the time to look into movies like Shrek 2. Movies that turn out to be shockingly good. Although this discussion has primarily covered animation content as a whole, there's a fine line between good and bad animated content. Several years ago, a man by the name of Adam Buckman reviewed a show titled Lunatics. According to Buckman, but there's precious little clever conversation in Lunatics because that would take away from the epic struggle for survival that is the centerpiece of every half-hour episode. Not all cartoons are created equal. Some are amazing and underappreciated. Some are forgotten for good reason. Just like any other genre of entertainment, there are both good and bad examples of animated content. The primary problem is it is often hard to find a good piece of animated content hidden within the piles of garbage. The adult audience often is not willing to go searching for only a handful of programs that are worthwhile. An audience should not have to search long for quality content. Advertising should adequately represent the source. Now that there's an understanding of the problem, what is the resolution? In the fourth and final Shrek movie,
Shrek Forever After,
Shrek has everyone in his life taken from him by Rumpelstiltskin. The movie progresses and Shrek finally finds Fiona again, but she doesn't even know him anymore. This barrier between the two is a direct parallel to the real-life issue of the animation industry and the adult audience. Many have tried breaking the barrier between animation and adult audiences. According to TV tropes, there's been an animation ghetto for many years. All that means is that animation, for many years, has primarily been for younger audiences. However, the article states that these days, the ghetto appears to have all but completely collapsed due to the success of anime and such shows as South Park, Family Guy, The Simpsons, Rick and Morty, BoJack Horseman, and Futurama. Though some of these shows' reliance on vulgar humor has led to a new misconception that all adult-oriented works of animation are self-consciously tasteless comedies. Although adult-oriented animation is a great thing to reach an older audience, it is also a slow thing. Many are still skeptical of seeing anything animated in fear of wasting time on a dumb children's show or movie. The most important piece of finding a resolution to the situation is the aspect of understanding. If companies can accurately advertise a piece of animated media and audiences can try to have a better understanding of an animated product, then there could already be another animation renaissance within the next few years. Shrek 2 is one of the best cartoon movies, and it's a shame that it was advertised for kids, when so much of the movie was more applicable to an older audience. Shrek 2 is another casualty in the misconception of animation. Shrek 2 was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Although nobody was interested in animation with higher standards of character building, comedy, and self-reflection, many were eager for Pixar. Shrek was a beautiful pearl formed from a crusty clam by the name of DreamWorks. Both would soon be consumed and forgotten by the amount of popularity that a competing company would immaculate. Pixar. Pixar was a tidal wave that completely crushed Shrek beneath the sands of time, leaving the green ogre buried and forgotten. It can be easily said that there's a disregard for animated content. However, to say that Shrek 2 is the most underrated film of all time is a bold claim. Shrek 2 made nearly $1 billion, and yet it's underrated? How's that so? Shrek 2 was a sequel to what is considered a children's film. The film being both a sequel and a children's film can automatically put people on edge. Both often leave room for laziness and carelessness in the movie's production itself. However, if a film is of Disney or of Pixar, there's no problem whatsoever. Disney and Pixar create a formula that's worked for decades now, and both found that their individual formulas could be replicated. That is the key to success. Shrek 2 was never a Pixar production. Shrek 2 was a movie made by a rivaling company that wanted to beat Pixar. DreamWorks has always been the underdog. Many times, productions under the head of DreamWorks have ended in disaster. These factors combined should have absolutely crippled the Shrek sequel. Shrek 2 should not have been a good movie. Many movies created by Pixar are not actually good films. However, if anything falls under the praise name of Pixar, it is to be given the blessing of adornment. If people would look at Shrek 2 for the film it is, and not a movie created by a chaotic, misled corporation, audiences might really enjoy themselves in watching Shrek 2, a movie that is superb. It is very ironic that, in the film, people can only see the true colors of Shrek only when they look at him as an individual, not from the group he originated from. Yes, he may be an ogre, but he is an individual. Then, in real life, people will only get enjoyment from the movie Shrek 2 if they look at the film as an individual and not as a part of the DreamWorks conglomerate. Yes, Shrek 2 may be a DreamWorks film, but it is individual and original. Finally, people like to generalize all animation as being for children because that is what most animated productions set out to create. However, if people would look at animated features as individual works of art instead of grouping everything together as a whole, the general audience would see the true colors of films like Shrek 2. Shrek 2 was a film plagued by bad luck from the start. But, just like Shrek, the movie could make the best of the situation and shine in an industry where light was fading. Shrek 2 is not perfect. No film will ever be perfect. However, Shrek 2 is a perfect model on how to go about life. When this cartoon family movie brings a high school student so deep in thought he writes a 2,000-word essay, it is safe to say that the beauty of Shrek 2 is in the eyes of the beholder. It's just how many layers you peel from the onion.
Oh, Lord.